doing? Eddie Austin here, Hampshire Capital, on today with our CEO, Shane Carter. We're going to talk about Pref equity.
All right. Happy to be here, Eddie.
So I'd like to touch on the Pref equity side of things. So this McCullum deal that we're raising on currently, we've had investors ask, so I notice there's a great deal of Pref equity in the deal, and what does that do to me as an LP investor? And I think that's a subject that a lot of investors would just like to know. How does that work when you have a large institution in with a mix of LP investors?
Yeah, great question. So preferred equity in this case refers to an equity slice or tranche that sits right over the debt, but comes before the LP or common equity position. So it's really a safer position to be in, right? Because it sort of gets paid first in terms of its principal before LP common equity. But it also inherently limits its return metrics for that safety. So there's a balance of risk and return, right? So the preferred equity tranche sits in a safer place, so it's less risky, and its returns are limited or capped as opposed to our LP common equity, which does not have a cap on its returns at all.
Right. I think a lot of people, they get the capital stack, the capital stack like a pyramid. And everybody thinks of it like a pyramid. Essentially, it's upside down. Because basically, if you put risk at the bottom, senior debt is the first one. So you have senior debt, they have the lowest amount of risk. And then the next stack above that, you have your pref equity, correct?
Correct.
And then you would have your LPs, and then you'd have your GPs on the top. And the GPs are essentially taking the highest amount of risk.
That's right. We're doing all the work and taking the highest amount of risk.
We're only getting the 25% or 30% of the cut, but yet we're the ones signing on the loan, managing the asset managers, making sure tenant relations are we're taking care of the whole deal.
That's right.
We're the ones talking to your pref equity team, putting the deal together. We're the ones having the meetings with the senior debt, and then creating that capital stack, and then essentially working with our attorneys. So yeah, doing a lot of work for taking the highest amount of risk. And I think a lot of them, they really do. They take that pyramid and they think of it like this, but it's actually essentially it's upside down.
That's right.
They put risk on the bottom, and that senior debt is the lowest amount, and then pref.
That's exactly right. And so, in general, and I know this is getting a little technical, but in general, a project levered IRR is going to be, higher than the LP returns without a pref equity tranche. That's a pretty common, metric. However, when you put that slice of preferred equity in there, you're actually able to create the reverse, where your LP common equity actually gets a greater return than the project level returns. And that is, again, because you could think of pref equity like leverage, but it's not. It's actual true equity. It's just that the upside to the equity is capped. So in our case here on this Dallas deal, it's capped at 12%. So once the preferred equity firm gets its 12% IRR hurdle, that's it. They're out of the waterfall, and everything just flows down to the LP and GP, which in this case is actually a 75-25 split. 75 to the investor, 25 to us as the GP. So that's what really is driving those return metrics, and why we're getting into the 20+% IRR range and the 30+% annual return range, is because that pref equity tranche is capped at what their returns are going to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's touch on pref equity for a minute. So that preferred return. So essentially, this deal has an 8 pref. So that 8%, in the tranche with the same as the pref equity side of things, that 8% that accrues, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and to be clear, the 8% is for the LP common equity. Our preferred equity tranche has a preferred interest rate or current pay, as we call it, of only 7%. So once their 7% component is paid in full, Then the waterfall flows down to the LP common investors. They get their 8% interest rate, and then flows down to the GPs if there's excess cash flow from there.
Right. Another thing, a great way to do this is you think about the capital stack and you think about cash flow as water. So if we take the pyramid and we put it upside down in a fish tank and we put the water in, being the capital from the sale or refinance proceeds, that fills up from the bottom. So when that fills up from the bottom, the senior debt, of course, gets paid first. And what's nice about the senior debt is they don't care about the profits. All they care about is their note.
That's right.
And then the next thing would be pref equity. They only care about what? The up to the 12?
That's it. They get their principal back plus their 12% IRR hurdle, and then they're out.
And then it flows even higher. Now we're dispersing capital to our LPs.
That's right.
And again, last guy with the highest risk, we're getting paid last.
That's right. We're getting paid last with the smallest slice of the pie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly how it works. There's oftentimes additionally, a equity multiple hurdle that is concurrent with the IRR hurdle for pref equity. But generally speaking, if you're holding the property for 3 to 5 years, you're paying that current pay component, you're gonna already organically clear that IRR hurdle. For that equity multiple hurdle. So it's really just the IRR hurdle. And to be clear, if in this case there's a 7% current pay and then a 12% IRR hurdle, those are not additive. In other words, it's not 7 plus 12. The 7% current pay is a component of the 12% IRR hurdle. Or to say it another way, there's only really another 5%, let's say, annually that is accruing and due to the preferred equity firm.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people, they really do those two things. They get the number one, well, I don't know if I want to invest in a deal when there's a large amount of pref equity in the deal. Those Class A style members, senior to debt. And then the second part, as I think they get the capital stack screwed on the way it lays. It's not this way. It's upside down. And then how do I get paid as an investor when the water comes in? When the waterfall starts flowing money, where does my payment come from?
Right.
And so let's touch on that real quick. So we got an 8%, and we're accruing through that deal. We're accruing that time frame on the 8 pref. When does the investor get his 8 pref?
So, as you said, first, the debt gets paid in full. So you have a liquidity event. You have a refinance or a sale, and you have proceeds. Mm-hmm. First thing that gets cleared is the debt, right? The principal debt. That gets cleared and paid. The next layer down or up from there, given your inverse triangle visual, is the pref equity slice. And so again, their principal gets paid, their accrued interest gets paid, if any. If it's been paid current the whole time, then it goes right to their principal. But first it's their accrued interest, if any. Then their principal gets paid. Then their IRR hurdle gets paid, or / equity multiple hurdle. And then they're done, and they're cleared off the table. Then the water flows to the LP investor. And the first thing they get paid there, again, is their 8% pref. So if it hasn't been paid in full, then that gets caught up to the 8% in the accrued fashion, and that gets paid in full, and then their principal gets paid, and only then after that will the GPs make money in the 75-25 split, where 75 goes to the investors, 25 of the profits go to us as the GPs. That's the waterfall.
Right. Okay. Perfectly explained. Thank you. And then on top of that, so are these quarterly payments as well as yearly when we do the end of the year?
Yes, we do quarterly. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think there's a lot of that probably trued up a lot of things that investors have questions on. I know from a capital raising standpoint, from in my neck of the woods, I get that question a lot. What does it mean?
Right. Well, hopefully we're able to shed a lot of light on that today, and appreciate you talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we're trying to get out here and educate you all and make you feel like that you have a safe place to invest and a purposeful place to invest because, again, our purpose at Hampshire here is to create purposeful returns for everyone and maintain a high level of integrity. And our mission, you can read on our bio and through Hampshire Capital's website. Please go and read through that ESG philosophy. We are extremely proud of that. And that is how we operate our company, and especially in our guiding principles.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll have links up above in the video on this. So, all right. Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you on the next one.
All right, man.